Welcome to What If. This is the history of the Bundy family occupation. Before getting into the occupation, let's first discuss their reasonings. The controversy begins in 1989 when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services listed the desert tortoise as an endangered species. By 1990, it was dropped down to a threatened species. During this time, there was already a fight between the Bureau of Land Management and Nevada citizens around the Red River. The federal government claims that this land is theirs ever since the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. The issue the deed holders have is that this river's banks have moved into their property and the federal government is claiming that land. It is an undisputed fact that if your property borders are marked by a river or creek, then as the body of water changes course, so does your property, as long as it occurs through gradual erosion. If the rivers change through avulsion, or when they change suddenly because of flood or other fast-paced event, the property lines do not change, and herein lies the problem. The federal government is claiming that because of erosion of the river, that the deeds held by the ranchers are no longer valid and that the land is theirs. Cliven Bundy's family has laid claim to that land since 1877, as well as many other ranchers across the 116-mile controversial stretch of the river, with no issues until 1993. In 1993, the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, designated the grazing land of the Bundys federal property. The BLM took hundreds of thousands of acres and added strict conservation rules. Among the conservation measures required is the elimination of livestock grazing in the newly protected tortoise habitat. Cliven Bundy accused the government of a land grab and refused to cooperate. By 1995, the other ranchers were feeling the effects and started pushing back on the BLM. So much so that someone sets off a small bomb in the U.S. Forest Office in Carson City, Nevada, which no one was injured. In 1998, a federal judge issued a permanent injunction against Bundy, ordering him to remove his cattle from federal lands. In 2002, another rancher by the name of Cliff Gardner was sentenced to a month in a Reno halfway house, along with a $5,000 fine and a year probation for not taking his cattle off of federal lands. Outside of letters and continued fines, things were quiet up until 2013, when Nevada Department of Wildlife mapped out even more land that should be taken by the federal government in order to save another animal, the sage grouse. But we will get back to this. Then in late 2013, the courts gave Bundy, the last remaining rancher in the area, 45 days to remove the cattle or they will come and seize them. It wasn't until April 5th of 2014 that the federal officials started rounding up hundreds of Bundy's cattle, which leads to this on April 10th.
In the air, holding flags with both hands in the air. It's a mixture of people on foot, as you can see, people on foot and cowboys.
With Metro, all right, push these people back up off the gate. Push them back up off the gate. We're going to work to release these cattle. Listen to me. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you, but I need you to back them up.
I understand what you're doing, and you will get that time.
Okay, but I know, I get that. But can we push them back up off the gate for right now? Let me work with you and you. I'll allow you two to come in with me. You come and measure. You're not getting arrested. You got my word that no one's taking you custody. If you want to stay there, that's great. They're getting your dad on top. No, they're getting your dad on top.
We'll make sure that
your dad's going to need some help if they decide that they're going to pull those pins. But it's only going to be Bundy and his son.
No,
that's it.
It's the people or not, and you guys need to leave.
Okay.
You need to leave. That's the
term. I'm telling you, you need to de-escalate the situation. No, I'm imploring upon you your responsibility to de-escalate.
Listen. You are on Nevada State Ground
Okay, and
It's
there's a
time.
time for you.
No,
There's a
the
time for
time is
instructions.
now.
We're doing that.
No, the
but
time
you need
is
to push
now.
these people back so they can do it safely. Push them back so they can do it
You
safely.
leave.
know that we respect your authority as county officers.
You're big boys with those big guns, aren't you? Oh, you're so tough and you're so brave. Look at that. What a bunch of bullies. Oh, tough. Yeah. You got control back where we're off.
Although both the BLM and the Bundys said this is not the end, there was peace until January 2nd, 2016. Cliven Bundy's son, Ammon Bundy, and supporters began an armed occupation of a Federal Wildlife Refuge building. Now we have to ask, what started this occupation and why? For this we have to go back to 2001 and discuss the Hammond family. For several years, the federal government, through the Bureau of Land Management, has diminished this family's success by forcing several new regulations on their own land. Forcing all ranchers next to federal land to install a very expensive fence along the borders. If they could not afford this fence, then they could no longer use their own land. The Hammond family lost more than half of their land due to these new regulations. After losing much of their land, they initiated a controlled burn on their property to kill overgrown weeds, which were using a lot of their water. Unfortunately, this spread and burned 138 acres of federal land. The Hammonds were able to get the fire extinguished themselves without federal help. This controlled fire was approved by the BLM beforehand. Then, in 2006, 5 years later, lightning struck on federal land and started a fire. The Hammonds initiated a backfire on their property in order to protect their last bit of grazing land. This was a success. They were able to stop the fire from destroying their land and save the federal government's land in the process. Only 1 acre of federal land was burned. The very next day, they arrested Dwight and Stephen Hammond for starting the backfire on their own land. The Harney County District Attorney reviewed the accusations from the federal agents and dropped all the charges. Now again, 5 years later, in 2011, the U.S. Attorney's Office accused the Hammonds of a completely new charge: terrorism. During the trial, the federal judge Michael Hogan refused certain defense evidence that would have exonerated the Hammonds, such as the tire tracks and boot prints that they allegedly collected was not even a match to anything on the Hammond property. But both were found guilty by jury members who were city people and did not understand the ranchers' need to protect their land. Dwight the father was sentenced to 3 months in prison, and his son Stephen was sentenced to 12 months in federal prison. They both had to pay BLM $400,000 in damages. Judge Hogan overruled the minimum terrorist sentence of 5 years, saying it would be a violation of the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. He retired the day of sentencing. On January 4th, 2013, both Dwight and Stephen reported to prison and served their time. Then, in October 2015, the 9th District Court resentenced Dwight and Stephen, requiring them to return to prison for several more years. The courts also forced the Hammonds to give the BLM first rights to their property if they ever sell, which, with them in prison, is a fast-growing forced option. On January 4th, 2016, the Hammond family duo returned to prison 2 days after the Bundy occupation. This is the history of the Bundy occupation. Our next video will not only get into more detail about the occupation, but also talk about how much land does the federal government really need. Please help support us by liking this video and subscribing to us. Like always, thanks for watching.